Here out in the local park, my friend Tim is going to fly his free flight as well as the 2-channel microjet, and I'm going to test out our XK K127 helicopter. There's slight wind. My weather app is showing 6 miles per hour. It's blowing from my back, and I'm going to get to it, but first I would like to set it to high rates. So one press on this little button, 2 beeps, so it's on high rate, and let's do automatic takeoff. And it's flying. It's of course drifting away because there's wind. Let's gain a little bit of altitude and bring it around, and oh, easily flying, beating this wind very easily. When you're on high rates, you have to be careful with the turns because it may lose a little bit of altitude when you are turning, depending which way you're going. But so far it's keeping pretty good. And by the way, I haven't charged the battery after our last flight, so it's the same battery. So this will also give us an idea what kind of flight time we expect. I think that 16 minutes is actually good for hovering. Just like leave it like that in a no wind situation, and then you may be able to get 16 minutes. But with active flying, it's probably going to be less, but we'll see. It is very stable, so this is really nice. I'm going to set it to low speed to show you how a beginner may fly it. So this is still quite fast in my opinion for a beginner flyer. Oh, it lost a little bit of altitude during that turn. Did you see that? And it's kind of drifting with the wind. That's okay. How is the lateral move, like the banking? Is it losing any altitude? Slightly when I change directions. Yeah, it has lost some altitude. Let's give it a little altitude back to it. So this is the low speed, low rates, and it is still flying pretty good. It is, oh, don't go down. Okay, it lost quite a bit of altitude. So although this is not like a throttle control, it is still, the barometer is drifting a little bit, especially when you are flying fast. And when you let go, it gains the altitude back a little bit. So I'm going to put it back to high speed, high rates mode. Yeah, now it's losing even more altitude when I kind of push the right stick forward, because it's using some of the, do you see? It's losing some altitude when I do that. Let's bring it back. So be careful about that if you are planning to have this helicopter as your first helicopter ever. First of all, I won't recommend it. Many YouTubers, I see them recommending these. Oh, this is for absolute beginners. And I will say, no, don't start with something like this. It still has, although it has, you know, altitude hold, it still has quite a bit of power and speed, and you need to know what you are doing in terms of orientation. My recommendation would be starting with a coaxial, but not 3-channel, a 4-channel properly controlled coaxial, meaning that the banking and pitch will be on the right stick here on this one, and the rudder or yaw and throttle will be on the left stick. Many of the 4-channel, pseudo 4-channel helicopters with the side fans, they do not have the proper controls, so you'll be training your thumbs or your fingers, however way you hold the sticks, in the wrong way. So you have to relearn those and then retrain them with a proper 4-channel helicopter like this one. So this is great because you are only really controlling 3 channels, not 4. It's not throttle. In my opinion, the hardest thing for me when I was learning to fly helicopters was to learn to hover. I'm still having trouble when I'm like turning and doing other maneuvers. you know, just hovering in place is one thing, but when you are moving and you are trying to keep the helicopter at the same altitude, it gets really difficult. And the second thing that I had trouble with helicopters after, you know, airplanes, is they can fly any direction. And it can be like this, like sideways, and then you need to know when you pull the right stick towards you, it's going to go to your left like this. And when it's facing you, you know, it's like airplanes, but you know, if you want to go to the right, you have to push left, and then when you go, when you want the helicopter to go to its right, you have to push your right like this, or to your left. So it just gets pretty confusing very quickly. So learn your orientation, you learn your hover on a simpler 4-channel helicopter before getting into something this quick. Or just fly something like this indoors. Don't go outdoors when there is especially wind. Like today is windy, you can see from the way I let go, and then it's just drifting away towards east. So that's the wind, although we are kind of protected in this area in the corner of the park. Other than that, it is fantastic. I mean, if you have some basic skills flying a little simpler helicopters, this could be your next helicopter. And or if you have any simulator experience like Real Flight or Phoenix or even the cheap ones, and you can hover and fly a helicopter, yes, then this can be your first heli, no problem. But don't expect to take it out of the box and then start flying right away. You know, just a word of caution. Some of you may be able to do that, and some of you may not have the coordination or motor skills for it, especially if you haven't played a lot of video games and things like that. So yeah, it can be a beginner flyer, but it's better that you start with something a little easier to fly. But other than it's fantastic. I mean, look, the wind kind of died down. It is just floating around the wind, keeping its altitude. I think the battery is getting a little lower because when I move forward, it's starting to lose. Do you see, if I don't let go of the right stick, it was just going to hit the ground pretty hard, and then I have to increase, because it is using part of its thrust from the main rotor blades for moving forward. But it is really great. So let's get it a little closer and then fly, maybe do some donuts. Of course it's floating away a little bit with the wind, so I have to bring it back like that. But it's flying very nice. Look, I'm just doing some circles. And it has been flying quite a bit. I'm guessing you are getting bored, but I wanted to test the battery. This wind is okay. Anything higher than that I will recommend. I'm trying to see if the little light is blinking, because that's an indication that no, it is still solid, so meaning that the battery is still fine. And off it goes and turns around and losing a little bit of altitude in those fast turns, and then when you let go it just gains that altitude quickly. Yeah, for $50 you cannot get anything better I think than this. And I'm going to be really excited to fly it together with my son when he's flying, trying out his E129, Eachine E129, and then we will switch helicopters and then fly each other's helicopter and then give some comments. So I would like to do that review soon. The side-by-side Eachine E129 and XK K127. Even the naming convention seems so similar. 129 versus 127. Now E-Sheen uses E, XK uses the last letter K. And they look very similar except some minor details and the battery size. What do you think, Tim?
Love it. I want one.
It is good one, right?
It's fast.
It is. I wasn't expecting it to be this fast. Yes,
I think it's a beginner helicopter.
Yeah, Tim, you agree with me, right? This is not the beginner, because especially if you haven't flown anything, no airplane, no drone, no helicopter. This is the first time, and if you are a little ham-fisted, this goes out of sight very quickly, or you may end up running into the ground because it loses a little bit of altitude. That's the only thing that I kind of criticize.
Can you increase throttle on your turn?
Well, it's not throttle, that's the thing. I'm on the turns, I'm increasing the altitude because I'm not controlling I'm not touching it as like a regular throttle. In a regular 4-channel helicopter without altitude hold, that will be throttle, but this is just altitude control. And you set it to a certain altitude and it should stay there, plus minus a couple inches usually. But right now, like, it's coming down a little bit.
Yeah, because normally when you're flying a helicopter, you have to increase the throttle or the pitch when you go into forward flight.
Absolutely.
It uses a lot of power in a stationary hover, and you got to give it goose a little more but you're saying that it's taken care of automatically with the...
Yeah, so this one, the barometer is sending a signal, control signal to the board, and it's adjusting.
Yeah, but how much of a difference of a barometer between 2 inches of altitude?
Yeah, well, you'll be surprised, but it depends, of course, on the quality. And right now we have, wind pushing it as well.
Yeah, there is some wind here, yeah.
There is some wind, and then that can affect the barometer as well, creating like micro pockets of different pressures, because barometers on this one depend on measuring the pressure very correctly, very precisely.
There's some gusts, so you gust.
Yeah, so if you get a gust, it means that there is a pressure difference between 2 areas on the park, and then the air is moving from one side to the other, meaning that it's not constant everywhere. So maybe you go down, maybe the wind is going that way, so probably the pressure over there is a little lower than the pressure where I'm standing.
Yeah.
Because the wind blows from high pressure to low pressure, so that's probably the reason it may be getting off a little bit.
When I've flown this before, and when you're very high and you come down pretty quickly because it's not collective pitch, there's kind of turbulence coming down, and you get a little unstable because you cannot reduce the pitch of the blades. They're fixed, and when you come down, you got the wind. If you there's some instability there, I've noticed.
You're right. This is
if you go up way high and you want to come down.
Yeah. So since you cannot change as Tim is saying, since you cannot change the pitch angle on this one, this is fixed pitch, not collective pitch. You cannot. So if you are coming down and you want to go up very quickly, on a collective pitch, you are increasing the pitch angle, so it is instantly increasing the lift. On this one, fixed pitch helicopter, it is accelerating the motor and it takes time. It's not as instantaneous as changing the pitch on a collective pitch rotor blade. This one, it is applying more voltage to this little DC motor. It's a brushed motor, by the way, so that it spins faster and it spins the rotor blades faster, so it creates more lift. So there is a little bit of a delay when you do that.
It's amazing. The brushed motors are still very efficient. You don't need a brushless motor. I mean, look at this.
It is flying really good. I mean,
they're pretty efficient. I think that people say, "Oh, brushless, or everything," but
I have been flying probably a total at least 10 minutes now.
Oh yeah.
And the light hasn't even started blinking, saying that the battery is low.
No, I think some people think brush motors are like old-fashioned, but I think they can still be very, very efficient.
I think so too. And this is what is called a coreless brushed motor. So
kind of a high-tech or a little modern.
So it's like a very small motor, very efficient, and it just uses a main gear to change the ratio. Basically, it's not direct drive.
Okay, yep.
It is reducing basically the turns.
Also, if you want to auto rotate, which you need to the pitch has to change, and you also need a gear that kind of releases the motor from the, but that's on more expensive 5-channel, right?
Yeah, probably. And I mean, you can see,
look at that.
Yeah, I'm going to put it to lower mode. So this is the lower speed mode. It is rotating slower. Let me bring it again close so you can see it's not just a speck on your screen, but the wind keeps pushing it away. So this is low speed mode, left turn. This is low speed mode, right turn. They seem to be the same. And I put it to high speed. This is high speed left yaw, low speed right yaw. It is quite quick. Of course, it's not aerobatic. This is still a beginner friendly, not necessarily first helicopter, but a beginner friendly RC helicopter. And it is quite quick. Now the light is blinking. Let me show you the tail light, the red light. And I don't want to go too far because it is not good for the battery. Let's bring it down a little bit and close it to me. Okay, it landed itself actually. I didn't have to land it because it decided to land itself. Okay, you can land. Alright. So that's it, folks. That was a pretty good flight, and as you see, the little light is blinking fast. That means that it has low battery. And it may have been blinking maybe in the last 1 or 2 minutes. I wasn't checking every minute, but for the rigorous flight that I've been doing, I think this is really good. I think this is very impressive that that little battery can fly this thing so long. I got the 1 battery version, but that's okay. I mean, I have so many helicopters. I don't have to fly the same helicopter back to back. I can bring 3-4 helicopters and fly them one after the other. So in terms of rating, how do I rate this? Okay, so in props and wheels rating, I rate this 4.5 props or rotor blades. The reason I took off 0.5 is the only reason it wasn't keeping its altitude, especially during the turns. I mean, if it were keeping its altitude, I would have given 5. So that's pretty close though. This is close to perfect. And I'm really impressed. Highly recommend it. And it also matches my sweatshirt. So it's the orange and kind of gray black. And the next, I'm going to ask my son to do a double flight with the Eachine E-129. So we'll see them side by side and get to fly them back to back and give our opinions. Please stay tuned for that video. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you, Tim, for your comments, and hope to see you all on the next video. Stay safe and healthy. Take care. Bye bye.